Dan, Sam, welcome to the Stark Reflections podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us. Very excited to be here. It's been a while since we've chatted, Mark.
It has been. But today is a special day. What is today?
Today is the official launch of our flash fiction anthology, Bolts of Fiction.
Oh my God, Bolts of Fiction. All right, so hang on. We want to pop this up. We want people to get a gander of it. The book's going to pop up between us here, but there you go. Nice little stack of bolts. Awesome. All right, so Bolts of Fiction. Let's go. So today is June 15th, 2024, right? Why is this the launch day for Bolts of Fiction?
Today in the UK is National Flash Fiction Day. So we thought, considering this is an anthology full of flash fiction, it would make sense to release it on a day that is celebrating flash fiction. Yeah. Henceforth, June 15th. There we go.
Very exciting. Yeah, this is so it's and when you say flash fiction, just for people who aren't familiar with what flash fiction is, that's not kind of like, hey everyone, look. It's a different style, right?
I'm sure that does exist, Mark.
Okay.
There's a whole genre for that. Yeah, no, this is flash fiction pieces. So we've the general classification tends to be stories under 1,000 words long. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we ran a kind of campaign in 2022. So it was a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
So it was a Flash Fiction February, which was essentially Sam's idea of jumping on every day, sending out a prompt to authors, making it a whole big group thing where people can, take the prompt, upload their stuff.
Yeah.
And we put a bit of a pressure deadline on it. So every day when a prompt was uploaded, people had 36 hours to write a story, edit their story, and send it in if it wanted to be included in this Bolts of Fiction anthology. Right. And it was one of those things where, my background is short stories. That's kind of how I got my lift into fiction and everything else. And personally, I've not had too much play with flash fiction, but it just seemed like a great way to get some writers writing, to showcase some amazing stories.
Yeah.
And we have 77 fantastic stories in this anthology for people to read.
Wow.
It just seemed, other than the obvious alliteration.
Yeah. Flash Fiction February.
Yeah. It was just one of those things where obviously in November you have Nano and everyone gets really pumped for it. And it's like this huge, mammoth undertaking. And then everyone goes kind of, into the festive season, and then January is January, and then it's just trying to get people back into it. And I thought it makes sense to do something that's kind of short form. People can see the prompts, if something grabs their attention, it's easy to just bash something out and then you're done, and there's no and yet there's still 29 more days left and you're nowhere near 50,000 words. It just seemed like a bite-sized fun challenge. And I will say, I'm getting tarred with the brush of this was my idea. Flash Fiction February was my idea. The anthology was your idea.
I wanted an end goal to it.
It makes sense.
Yeah, we had all of these people submitting stories. We had this whole campaign going, and I've edited a few anthologies in my time. There's a few on sort of the shelf behind me, and in my head, I was like, it's not a lot of work. Every time I do an anthology, I'm like, it's not that much work. It absolutely is.
It's so much work.
As we say, it's like a year and a half since Flash Fiction February happened.
Yeah.
And we're finally here at the point in which we can publish a book. But yeah, I'm one of those people where I'm like, if you're gathering people together, even if they are small things that, essentially everyone got 28 chances individually to be in an anthology. Why not put a nice little end goal on it? You're writing stuff to a stimulus. You can kind of dabble if you want to, but for people that want to really sort of take it a bit more seriously and really hone their craft and do it. And that was kind of what we wanted. We wanted people from all different levels to play with it, to have fun if they want to be a bit more serious. And it worked really well. We had sort of hundreds of stories from people across multiple different countries, and
wow,
here we are.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to, so you had the idea, and you co-conspirators, you came up with this plan, and then so every day there's a social media post that you had to follow, and then you would get a very usually entertaining prompt.
Hi guys, and welcome to day 1 of Activated Authors Flash Fiction February. Sam, what's Flash Fiction February? Simply put, Flash Fiction February is a writing challenge. Every day you receive a different prompt and you are tasked with writing a piece of flash fiction of 1,000 words or less. The prompts will vary from genre to genre, but here's the thing, there's no rules, there's no hard and fast. If you want to write horror every day, you write horror every day. If you want to write cozy mystery, go ahead. The prompts are yours to do with what you want. How do we submit them? Oh my god, I'm so glad you asked. From the moment of us sending you the prompts, you have 36 hours to submit your story back to us. Just as an FYI, if you think this looks like a really cool challenge and you want to get involved, it's not too late. This challenge is open all month. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to www.activatedauthors.com/flash and sign up. And here's the best part. Each time you submit one of your stories, you stand a chance of being published in our first ever Activated Authors charity flash fiction anthology, Bolts of Fiction. Enough of me spieling. Here is today's prompt. Once a year, dream catchers need to be emptied of all the nightmares they have collected. Where do the nightmares go? Go! It's day 10 of the Activated Authors Flash Fiction February. I cannot believe that we are already on day 10. This challenge is going by so quickly. Big thank you to all of the incredible people that have submitted stories already. I am loving them. Going a little bit sci-fi today, so here's our prompt. Everyone is born knowing when they are going to die. Write about a character whose death day has been and gone, and they are still alive. And FYI, if you want to get involved but you haven't missed any deadline. This challenge is open all month. Head on over to activatedauthors.com/flash and sign up for free, and then you can be involved with everybody else and be one of the cool kids. Remember, time is a human construct. It is arbitrary, but that being said, you do have 36 hours. So, go do the thing. But time isn't real, but do the thing. Vamos to the writing. Welcome to day 28 of the Activated Authors Flash Fiction February. It's the last day. I can't believe we're on day 28 already. It literally feels like only 27 days ago we started. It's insane. If this is the first post you're seeing of this and you're like, oh my God, I missed it. No, I know it's the last day, but you can still get involved. Head on over to www.activatedauthors.com/flash and sign up. And then you can put in your story for today and stand a shot of being published in a flash fiction anthology. Anyway, we still got one more challenge to go. You still have a deadline tonight of midnight to get yesterday's prompt in, and you need your prompt for today. So I'm going to stop being so waffly and here it is. A daring escape from a nursing home. The last prompt of this year's Flash Fiction February. But dry your eyes, my friends. This does not have to be the end, no. If you have loved this challenge and you've loved spending time with all of the awesome people in the Facebook group, then why not consider signing up for a 30-day free trial of Activated Authors? We run weekly sprints, we have masterclasses, there's so much fun stuff going on. I guarantee you, once you meet our amazing community, that you might just want to stick around.
And then you would get a very usually entertaining prompt for what, and there were different lengths. So, right, there were certain, can you describe a little bit about how you came up with the various prompts and ideas, and then why you went with the varying lengths?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, I shamelessly farmed Pinterest. Shamelessly. Like, if you need writing prompts, my lord, they have so many on there. So I went through and I looked at ones that made me go, that's interesting. And I think it depends. I mean, whenever there's a prompt, there's always, I think, for at least kind of 80% of people that would see it, there's kind of like an obvious angle to go for. And so I wanted to kind of come up with the ones that you had that. And, because sometimes even going for like the obvious angle is something that is incredibly interesting. But you want to leave space for people's brains that go, hang on, I'm going to do this kind of, I'm going to turn the corner and look at it a completely different way. So I was just looking essentially at any prompts that were like fun, interesting, that made me think, and then, just kind of like tweaking them a little bit here and there. And the different lengths was because I think that a lot of people, if they've not dealt with flash fiction before, it's very easy to go, okay, it can be up to 1,000 words, so it will be 1,000 words.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And, some of the best stories that I read in this were 15 words.
Sorry, we're gonna have to pause this because my son is shouting my name repeatedly. 2 seconds.
No worries, we can edit this part out.
It's just taking the light switch off for no reason. Yeah, your I'm trying to remember. There's so many. There's like over 70 stories, but the
Bell's whole thing.
And you read
Bell's whole thing. Oh my lord, yeah. The first time I read that, like I cried.
Which one is that?
It's the really short one where it's the old man that used to be Captain Avenger and he can't help anymore.
Oh wow, okay, wow.
And that, like, just that, because there's something. I think I have a real like. There's definitely something in me about like missed time, missed opportunity, that kind of thing, and just that idea, like in such a small amount of time. Like that was the one I read to my sister as like an example of flash fiction, because she was like, how can anyone like convey like a full story, even if it's just a snippet in it? And I read that and she was like, I was like, there you go, that's how you do it.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the Stephen King short, like flash fiction?
Oh my god,
which one? The Stephen King one?
Like shortest, the one he said was like the shortest one you can think of.
Yeah,
and it was like baby shoes worn once.
Yeah. I've had that alluded to Hemingway and then a whole bunch of other people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that 6 words. Wow, powerful. But what you guys did as well was it was very specifically limited to like a very tight word count too. Is that what it was? Like, no, it had to be under a certain word count, right?
Yeah. So it like absolutely no longer than 1,000 words. That was just like the blanket rule for the whole thing.
Right.
Hard rejection. I'm very good at like, if it's over that, no.
Yeah.
You're done. You're out.
Yep.
It's no longer a bolt. It's
yeah, you're no longer a bolt. You're turning into a storm, and we're not after that.
Full circuit.
And then I think it was every 3 days, if memory serves, we had kind of like an extra tricky challenge prompt, and that's where really tight word counts came in. So you know, the first one was it had to be exactly 1,000.
Exactly 1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it had to be exactly 500, and then it was down to 250, 100, and then 50. Because it was that thing of like, I wanted it to be fun for people. I wanted people to enjoy it, but it's the idea of, when it comes to flash fiction, short stories, it's about taking, you know, that idea, that moment, and being able to deliver it as succinctly as possible, as beautifully as possible. And just the idea of starting someone, giving them the full reign of that, okay, here's 1,000 words, and now take out 500 of them. And just the idea of just like pulling in the lens until you're left with the
core.
Yeah, exactly what it was about in the first place. And it's funny because some stories like suited 500 words better, some stories suited 250 better, and it was really interesting to see the people that kind of entered it, you know, each time, and where those stories kind of really sang.
Yeah, it really gave people a chance to edit their story. So for a lot of the stories, you know, you can come in, and if you've written 1,000 word exactly, you could then write a brand new 500 word. But we did have quite a few people write the 1,000, come in with the 500, and just shrink it. And it was nice to kind of offer that chance of editing. And then you also had a few prompts that were like, you know, dialogue only or description only. And so, you know, you've got this kind of fun element of, let's all pitch in, let's write some stories, you know, throw them out. You can have a chance to be in the anthology. But there was also a real sense of challenge and artistry and kind of developing people's skills as they went through the month.
Because otherwise it's boring, right? Like, if you don't have that sense of challenge, especially considering, you know, you put in the easy work of the anthology at the end of it.
Run through activated authors as well. So we had like, you know, a built-in community of people already getting involved in the challenges and excited for it. And again, like, you know, we run boot camps every November for Nano. And so kind of to have this as a bit of that extra boost, it was just fun for people to play with and develop some people's skill.
So you guys had when you were, it was blind submission. So when you were reading the stories, you had no idea who the writers were.
No.
Which was kind of cool. And then when you put the anthology together, because it was themes, how did you structure the anthology? Was it structured based on themes, or how? I'm very curious how you take all of this stuff and go, okay, I like this one and this one and this one and this one, and all these different lengths and all these different styles from a whole book, like what, 28 different themes, or was it a leap year? No, 28 different themes, right?
I mean, putting together an anthology in the first place is like it's an art, like, you know, it's not just, I think a lot of people when they go into it, it's just like, oh, let's just gather these stories together. But there's a bit of an ebb and flow. You have kind of like, you know, more intense stories. You want to like then have one that kind of breathes out a little bit, just so as people are reading, they're not like overburdened with too much of the same thing. And it was down to you. You did a lot of the putting together the different stories in the different ways to keep that rhythm moving.
I didn't want to put the all of the prompts together, because I think like as a challenge it's fun, but you know, if someone comes up across this and they had no idea about the challenge or anything, kind of reading, you know, say like 5-6 stories off the same prompt can be a little bit monotonous as someone that's coming to it without knowing anything of it.
Right.
So I essentially took the stories that, you know, the submissions that we had accepted and looked at each one again, and I've just basically tried to put music to it. So it's like Dan says, there's an ebb and there's a flow, and you know, you don't ever feel like necessarily you've had cold water thrown over your face. You know, you don't go from like 1,000 words to like nothing. So like you build up, say, you know, there's a bunch of stories that kind of really pull on your heart, like you build that to a crescendo and then you kind of tail it back off again with, you know, comic relief or that
Speaking
kind of
like
thing.
True artists.
Yeah.
It's just, I had a poster board and post-its, and I was just...
And yeah, it's the voices as well, because, you know...
And a conductor's baton too, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But yeah, the author voices, and, you know, there was no boundaries really to what the type of stories were. So we do have quite a few in there that we would argue are quite dark, you know, could trigger some people. So we've kind of backloaded a lot of the darker stories into their own little section, so that should people want to, because when it comes to reading flash fiction or just any kind of like shorter fiction anthologies, you know, people kind of want to know what they're expecting. So all of the ones that we kind of deem are a bit more accessible to everyone are at the front. And then because my background, and obviously yours as well, is horror, I did have a lot of horror authors come in with some quite stark stories, and so I've kind of packaged them together as a bit of a like an after dark bit towards the end of the anthology itself. But yeah, we've got, you know, the funny in there, followed by the more sort of like emotional, followed by kind of like the intense, and then the more light. And
just there's some
cracking
stories.
stories.
Like they're just really some kind of like pull your heart out. Like,
I mean, one made me cry.
Yeah,
one, I won't say which one, but there's one that made me cry.
Like there are some real kind of just, you know, you need to put it in the freezer for a second, and then there are some that make, I mean, I would laugh this. Yeah, there's some that are just so funny.
It's just a celebration of authors, really, because again, like people from all backgrounds kind of mixed in. We've got urban fantasy writers, fantasy writers, thriller writers, horror writers, romance writers, like the whole kind of spectrum is in this anthology. And I think that's the beauty of it. And what I hope we get across with this is, you know, anyone who picks up the book is just a real insight into what flash fiction can be.
Yeah.
Because I remember that when my first step into writing and kind of the career that is now spanned coming up to 10 years now was reading or being given a book of short stories by Stephen King. Stephen King didn't give me the book.
I was going to say that would have been a really cool experience. Here you go, Daniel.
It's just like telling us to go. Like,
very funny story. But like I had read a few short stories. Like I studied English and things at uni and college and stuff, but I never really got the magic. And then I read through this collection. And I was like, how diverse these stories are, and just the fun that he had with, you know, first person, third person, length, form, the whole lot. And so for people who are, you know, wondering what all the fuss is with flash fiction, like pick this anthology up, pick up another anthology and just have a look, because you can do so much with so little. And I really hope that's one of the things that we get across with this is like, you don't have to have a novel to tell a story. You can tell it in, you know, a page or two.
You can tell it in 10 words.
Yeah. There are a couple of very short ones.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, wow. I can't wait to sink my teeth into this. So it is launching today on June 15th, 2024. It's available in ebook, paperback?
Ebook and paperback at the minute on Amazon. We are hoping to roll it out into sort of wider formats as months go by, but to begin with, it's Amazon.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Ebook and paperback for now.
Yeah.
Ebook and paperback, and they can go to bookstoread.com/bolts of fiction to find the links. So, you know, folks in the UK will go to the right version of the store. Folks here in Canada can go to the right place.
Absolutely, yeah. We try to make it as easy as possible for you.
Yeah, that is fun. But and this is not just a really awesome exercise for those activated authors out there. This is an exercise in charity too, right?
Yes. So I am the founder of Devil's Rock Publishing, which is the imprint for which this anthology is being published. And one of the things that I've done kind of since I founded Devil's Rock in 2019 is try to make sure that at least a portion of all the profits of my books go towards Wildlands Trust, which is it's a charity that has a cause very close to my heart, which is, you know, preserving wildlife, preserving the world, essentially. You know, because I'm that humble. But no, I love a lot of what they've done. Like I'm just really sort of keen on the environment and all that kind of stuff. And I've always wanted to be you know, giving back in some way. And I think, you know, when you're in the book trade, obviously books rely on paper, comes from trees. There's a lot of that going around. So it's kind of just giving a bit back. And 100% of all the profits from this anthology will go to Wildlands Trust. So anyone that grabs a copy, anything that's made will go straight over to those lovely people over there. And we'll hopefully go to supporting, you know, ecosystems, habitats, the environments, the whole thing that we live on.
Oh man, that is so exciting. Well, so okay, so we're celebrating the launch. We're really, really excited, but I am curious as to what the other collaborations that you guys are working on. What are some other things? You know, we're in June of 2024. What are some of the other things that are going on that authors might want to check out?
Oh man,
this one's you, my friend.
That's a very difficult question.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've got a lot of fiction projects on the go at the minute. So I've got some short stories coming out in horror anthologies over the next few months. I've got a couple of fantasy bits and pieces I'm writing. You're working on my audiobook for Self-Publishing Blueprint.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
Are you narrating the audiobook or producing it? What's the
so I trained as an actor over here in England. And one of the things that we worked on was kind of like voice work, audio books, that kind of thing. And yeah, it was Dan, I think it was a couple of years ago, who said to me, like, why aren't you doing audiobooks? And I was like, I don't know. And so, yeah. So it's already recorded. I'm editing it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I have it's fun to record. I'm getting used to the editing process. That's less fun. Because I have to listen to myself over and over again.
Yeah.
When you're doing it, you're on the phone, you're like, I'm so good. And then you listen back, you're like, that needs some editing. But that's okay. We're getting used to it. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun actually, because, well, I mean, it's an incredible book and it's just nice to be able to just read it in like your natural voice.
Fun with it. And yeah, I like the writing. I don't so much like the narrating side of things. Like, you know, it's just how I'm wired, I guess. So, you know, you've got a fantastic voice for it. Like I've heard bits and pieces of it and it's working really well. But I also have like an entire back catalogue that I'm looking at kind of expanding into other formats, other stores, all that kind of stuff that I'm trying to play with. So yeah, there's a lot more sort of fiction and books coming out on the horizon, which for myself, you can find over at danielwillcocks.com, and that's WILLCOCKS. And then you've got a website coming up at some point, but it's not quite ready yet.
Yeah, no, we'll be getting there. It was masteressofnone.com, but it's currently under heavy construction.
Yeah. Okay. And also, just to add more links, if you want to find the full roster of authors in this anthology, that's at devilsrockpublishing.com/fiction.
Oh, awesome. And of course, I'll have links to the show notes in the show notes at starkreflections.ca to all those things. And I think Mistress of None will probably be, you know, by June 15th should be under less construction.
Yeah.
It's okay. One of the highways here, 12 years. 12 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's not a few years. But also, just in case it hasn't been clear on here as well, if people want to read some of Mark's work in this anthology, got a couple of stories in there as well, just in case that wasn't fully covered. But
I forget. Yeah, and I am so thrilled. I'm so honored. I think I have a couple pieces in the anthology, and I was just so tickled pink. But what I was even more tickled by was the opportunity you gave me as a creative person to play. I wrote a bunch of things. I didn't submit all of the things, but I am in the process of constructing a 20th anniversary short story collection. My first self-published book 20 years ago. So I'm doing this in October, and I have a section of micro pieces, short fiction and poetry. And I was looking at some of the pieces I wrote for you and either submitted but didn't get in, or I didn't submit. I just wrote and I went, oh, neat. I'll put that aside for now. And I was going back in and going, well, that's an original. It's never been published. I might include that because again, it takes, 50 words or whatever. So I think it was a phenomenal experience because every day, and I didn't do it every day. I didn't submit every day, but I would see the prompt. I would be inspired or not inspired because I was too busy and I didn't have time to be inspired, or I'd get inspired and then go, okay, I'll remember that. And I forgot. But then when I sat down, I had a really fun time playing with it. So I want to say if any projects like this, that you guys are running or anyone else, I think it's a really great creative exercise. And I want to thank you guys so much because it's a lot of work. You had to do all of the prompts. You had to create all of the social media for it. You had to push that out there. Then you had and I've done this before, you're reading submissions from anyone, anywhere in the world can submit.
Mhm.
And that is called a slush pile for good reason, because it comes in and you have to wade through the slush and find the right pieces, and that process itself takes forever. So I just want to applaud you guys and thank you for that.
Yeah, most welcome. Yeah, I think, you know, as I say, the heart of this anthology is really trying to inspire people and give people that opportunity, because, like, I think there's a tendency when people are like, I want to be a writer, to jump straight into writing the novel. And that was my experience. The first book I ever tried to write was the first of a fantasy trilogy, because if you've never written before, why don't you start with epic fantasy?
Yeah, start with 150,000 words, right? Like, why not?
Yeah, exactly. And so it wasn't until I wrote my first shorter story, which was about 16,000 words, and then started doing more short stories and, you know, did some podcast stuff, which we can go into another time. But like, the short stories for me were really the gateway into writing longer fiction. I think it's one of these things that, you know, those who know it well, but for a lot of people, like, give it a chance, because you can do masterful things with very few words.
As proven in this anthology.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. So again, people can check out Bolts of Fiction, I guess books2read.com/Bolts of Fiction. They can find links. So if you're watching this in the far, far distant future, it'll have links to a bunch of other places as well where people may be able to pick it up.
Yes.
Awesome. Dan and Sam, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today.
Thank you so much for having us. Really appreciate it, Mark.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And congratulations on the new release to you guys, as well as all of the contributors to Bolts of Fiction.
Yes. It is their work as much as it is ours.
It is much more than work.
Thanks again.
Thank you, bye.
Why are you still here? You got stories to write.